All right, everybody, back again. Continuation, Sunscreen Day 2. We've got a lot of interviews so far, so you can hear that word a lot. There's still Day 2.
It's still Day 2.
If it was Day 4 by now, I'd be shocked. But, as usual, we're your hosts. I'm Tony Serrato.
I'm Patrick Wall.
I'm Kevin Butts.
And to our special guest, sir, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
I'm Batman. No, I'm Maxim Jago.
Well, very nice. Thank you for coming, man. So, what brings you to Sunscreen?
Well, I've been wanting to come to Sunscreen for years, and somehow there's always something that conflicts with it. I'm in the UK, so it's a bit of a trek across the pond. But Dave DeBolt's a good friend of mine, and he suggested I come and speak on a couple of panels, and I think I'm doing a pitch session, and just an opportunity to meet everybody and participate.
Now, is that the one where they do almost like the elevator pitch?
Yeah.
How do you pitch something in 30 seconds? So
Yeah,
you
exactly.
Have enough time from one floor to the next?
How to put out what your project is and why people should want to make it.
Okay. So, well, speaking of that, I know it's maybe you're doing the panel, but can we cheat a little bit? Can you give us a quick example of what a good pitch might be?
The elements that make a pitch really impactful are essentially rooted in emotional states, right? Human emotional states. So you need to capture the listener with something that will matter to them. And it's got to be bankable. It's got to be business savvy.
Okay.
So one of the biggest problems with indie films is that there was an amazing article I read by a script reader in Hollywood. And the title of the article was something like, "Nobody Cares About Your Amazing Film Project." And the guy breaks down and says, every week I get at least one screenplay that is so amazing that I flag it and I say, this should absolutely be made. This is what goes on what they call a blacklist in Hollywood. It's a list of screenplays that are fantastic that haven't been picked up yet.
Okay.
So, and the guy was saying the problem is these screenplays are never going to be made because the only metric that's really meaningful for a movie that's got to make, let's say, millions, right? If you just want to make a few thousand back, if you bootstrapped it and you made a film, have a great concept, get some support, get some sponsorship maybe, some investment in kind, and go and make your movie. But if you want to have millions to make your movie, you've got to earn at least double that at the box office. Because the box office takes half, right? Usually at least. So you get $2 million to make a movie, it's got to make $4 million at the box office, and you have to ask yourself, why would somebody go and see your film at the box office? Especially as an indie, because the studios don't allow that many days of screening time for indie films, because it's direct competition for their own movies, right? They don't want to have indies competing with them.
Right.
So you need names. The only metric that you can use to sell a film to the public is somebody famous. And a friend of mine in Hollywood said the measure is it needs to be somebody recognizable by name on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean without Google. And that will help sell a film. There are charts and software applications and algorithms to work out at this budget, with this name, in this territory, what's the expected sales. And they're modestly accurate. It's not a 100% sure thing. It's a science and an art. But if you don't have someone famous, maybe you can get away with a big influencer. Like we were talking about Mr. Beast earlier. Get Mr. Beast in a movie. There are examples I've heard of film premieres where the film premiere had some famous YouTuber that the film industry had never heard of, but it turns out the crowd was there for the YouTuber, not for the famous actors.
Right.
So it's a difficult thing, but where filmmakers often go wrong, I think, when they're pitching, is they think that all you need to get money to make a film. There's a difference between people saying, I would love to see that film, that sounds great. Like that's fairly easy to achieve.
Yeah.
But getting people to say, here's a check for lots of money,
Right.
you have to respond to the business aspects of it.
Yeah.
And this is where you get the need for what are called LOIs. Now in business, you have a thing called an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding. An MOU in business means there's no legal consequence, but let's all agree, broadly speaking, that if we do sign a contract, this is basically the terms that we're talking about. An LOI from an actor, a letter of interest, and you can get them from crew as well, but the truth is, even Roger Deakins, who is such a phenomenal director of photography, I'm a straight British man, but I'd marry him. I mean, if it means he'll work on my film, what a phenomenal genius. Even Roger Deakins can't sell a film to the public. Filmmakers will pay to see his films. The public, they don't know who he is. So it's got to be cast. And an LOI is a letter of interest. And what it says is, effectively, you can put my face on the poster.
Okay.
You can put my name and my face on, on the investor deck.
Okay.
And it means subject to availability, subject to fee negotiation, subject to contract negotiation. I'm interested to play this role in this film.
Okay.
And so you could just at any time withdraw. There's usually a line in it saying there's no legal consequence, nothing legally binding.
Right.
But effectively it means you can put into the investor deck, this actor has said that they will play this role.
Okay, as part of your selling point.
Yeah.
We got this guy. Or we can
Right.
say,
So you say we've got this
attached to
movie.
this project.
Right.
Yeah.
Amazing project. What I'm expecting tomorrow in the pitch session is some really compelling films that I would want to see. But I'm really going to be impressed if someone says we're already in negotiation with such and such a name. They've given us an LOI. I was shown a deck recently, phenomenally well produced presentation, and it had about 4 or 5 pages that were just literally scans of the letters of interest they've got from famous names that have said, yeah, we want to be in this project.
We want to be a part of this. Okay.
Take my money, right? You're going to make that movie, right?
Yeah.
You're going to sell that movie. And so, however, if you can get a movie made on your own, there are a number of platforms now that you can put the content out. You can get an audience. Up to 60% of revenues for feature films comes from online streaming platforms anyway. So you can get major money. The benefit of getting a theatrical release is that there are a number of review services that kick in if you, and I haven't checked this recently. I was talking to one of the people at an organization a while back. You have to have screenings on 2 different days, ideally an opening weekend, that are public screenings, theatrical, where people can buy tickets for it. That will then trigger, some of them it's over 2 weekends, so you can do one week and then the next. That will trigger all of the services that are committed to reviewing every film that has distribution, will kick in and they'll review your film.
Nice.
And in some cases, you might need to send them a screener online or something, but they will review your film. That's an enormous amount of exposure, which can lead to sales for the online platforms.
Okay.
But a lot of people don't know it's got to be 2 separate screenings. Now, you can buy out your own screenings, right, and give those tickets away, and it's like, it's a sellout, right? But a lot of people just do one. They have a premiere, and they invite the reporters to it, and they're too busy dealing with the films they have to review.
Okay.
So you've got to make it at least 2 screenings. That was what I was told.
Okay. That's interesting.
That's a long answer for a short question.
No, but that's why we're here. Is that's one of the joys that we have about coming here and getting to do this at the film festival is like get this understanding of because for me, I loved movies growing up as a kid, and I just loved it as this movie made me laugh. Oh, this movie had awesome action. But like getting to come here and then getting to engage with everybody and hear everything else that has to go through like making this theatrical masterpiece is amazing.
Oh, it's
like
killer.
From sound to distribution to marketing on it. It's all
It's
awesome.
an enormous task.
Yeah.
And I think though, I set out to be a filmmaker when I was 15, and I was rather naive, and I thought, it's great. I'll just film things, and people will give me millions of dollars, and it'll be fantastic. But it turns out you have to have money to make films and connections. And the thing about connections is it's not, as they say, it's not who you know, it's who knows you, and it's how they know you. And so I've spent years and years and years building up lots of shorts and lots of media technology work, building that up to a point where I can make feature films.
Okay.
But I don't know how to phrase this. I'm Gen X, right? So you'll have to forgive me if I'm a little blunt. But I said this in a panel earlier on today. When I was a kid at school, they used to threaten us with the teapot factory up the hill from my school. They used to say, if you don't do your schoolwork and get good grades, you're going to work in a teapot factory. And I grew up thinking, you don't need to make billions of dollars. You just need to earn enough money not to have to work in a teapot factory. Right? Or the post office, that sounded really boring to me. Now, I have friends that love that kind of work, and they're very happy, right? This isn't about a value judgment thing. This is about what what would bring me satisfaction.
It's about a passion judgment.
My passion, my occupation, as distinct from my career, right? What am I doing with my days? Does it make me happy? So you actually just need enough of an audience. And one of the wonderful things about the new platforms like TikTok, YouTube, those two in particular, you can get some headway with Instagram still. There's new platforms coming live I've heard of recently. I think they're still NDA, but very impressive, that will make, let's say it's a more equitable distribution of revenues. All of this allows you to avoid working in your personal teapot factory, whatever that might be.
Right.
So, but you have to be realistic about it. And I think that it is such an incredible privilege. It's such a joy to work in a creative field.
Yes.
Whatever that creative field is. It could be producing music, it could be creating films, or whatever it is, writing books, creatively. I think that there's an unhelpful, I don't know how to phrase, I'm just going to say this badly, right? So just get the spirit of this, right? There's a sort of arrogance you see in some people where they say, well, I deserve to be paid an enormous amount of money. And I should have my own chair and people should bring me coffee. I have a right to be treated well. And I always think that things like trust and distrust, respect and disrespect, those sorts of things are, inside the circle, outside of the circle, socially, those are all established over time. You don't get to demand respect, you earn respect.
Right.
Yeah, that's called entitlement.
That's the word. Yeah,
that's
entitlement.
Yeah.
And I've directed 35 shorts, about 60 projects altogether, one feature-length doc. I'm just about to deliver my first directorial fiction feature film, and I'm always grateful for anybody who wants to offer advice or a perspective. And I'm just grateful that I get to be on set. In fact, I'm convinced at any moment someone's going to come and take the toys away. Like, I don't get to have... I've got the Batmobile and the Spider-Man Frisbee. Like, surely no one's going to let me have both of these at the same time in the sandpit. So, to my mind, it comes across to me, I suppose, as entitlement is probably the best word, that, you don't have to be here. And I know, like, making films is incredibly hard. It's long days, it's grueling, everything breaks, things don't, like, the doors are locked, there's trains going by when it should be quiet. Like, it's endless challenges to overcome, but what a privilege, what an absolute joy to have this opportunity. I remember years ago I went to a panel with, I think her name's Rebecca O'Brien, I think it's Ken Loach's producer, years ago. And someone said, how do you choose who you're going to hire? And she said something like, I'm going to misquote, but the gist of it was, she asks herself whether she feels like she'd like to get drunk with the person she's talking to. And if she thinks she would, she does. And if she does enjoy getting drunk with them, she'll hire them. And her
the
reason
greatest hiring practice
I was going to say that has got to be the greatest interview ever. Can you hold your liquor?
Tell me another dad joke. But what she pointed out is that it is so hard, it is so stressful, it pushes people so far on set when you're working against long deadlines, maybe you're doing an overnight shoot. There's that moment about 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, your body temperature drops and your brain's like, okay, this is the sleepy bit, right? Holding a jib arm or something. And, you're on grit. But she said you need to know that if it's raining and you're stuck in the car and you can't shoot, but you have to shoot, and you're stuck in a small car with 4 people in the car, do you drive each other crazy? Is your company desirable? Are you a good person to be around? And I think it's such a privilege to work in the media, to work on film. It's so powerful. It's so impactful. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? The pyramid of needs. You've got, air, water, food, shelter, like the order of priority, right? But once you've got all your basic needs met, being a causal agent, being somebody that causes change in the world is right there. Self-realization means realizing yourself in the world. And film, TV, any kind of media, any kind of visual storytelling is an incredible medium for changing the world. And it could be that your goal is to change the world in some social issue, right? Maybe it's some form of equality or opportunity or recognition of somebody that's suffering or shouldn't be suffering.
Yeah, it's bringing something to light that
Right.
may not have been.
Shining a light on it, right? even when your cause is noble, I still think, hey, it is a privilege to be doing this. Appreciate the joy that you get to work on this. If you're working on a documentary, what a privilege to be capturing these moments and to be the messenger sharing that message. So just be appreciative of what you have.
And it's also on the flip side of that too. Like if you, like you said, you've got a million obstacles to overcome. Everything, Murphy's Law. What can go wrong will go wrong. They said.
Yes.
Well, if you have that drive and push through all that, then once your finished product's done, that's got to give you an even greater sense of pride. Like this, like I could have just said I'm done, or it's like, hey, it's not my money. We'll just chalk it up as a loss. It may not work again in the industry, but this is too much for me. But those who stay with it and those who push through those things, figure out that out-of-box thinking, or hey,
amazing.
Like it's pouring rain. We're supposed to have an outside shot. We don't have enough overhead coverage. How can we still make the shot and figure something out?
Some amazing examples. Sam Raimi and his crew invented the Steadicam. Do you know that?
Yep.
Working on Evil Dead. And they worked out that if they put the camera in the middle of a plank of wood and had people running at either end of the plank of wood, the movement would even out because of the leverage in the wood. That was the original, that was the first Steadicam. It was a lovely example I heard about years ago in the UK, where they were filming, but they had so many delays in pre-production that it was meant to be a film shot in the summer, but by the time they got on location, it was getting towards winter. And so it was so cold that every time people exhaled, you could see the vapor in their breath. But this was meant to be, this is awful, it was meant to be a film about people at a fitness camp, a health camp. And there's all of these bits where they're in the sea, and they're paddling around in the sea. And they're supposed to be, oh, what a glorious sunny day. Now you can grade that in post to make it look sunny.
Yeah.
Like you can punch up.
But you can't heat that water up.
You can't heat the water up. So these poor actors are in their swimsuits, paddling in the ocean in the winter. But they realized on the day of production that every time they spoke, the camera was picking up this vapor. So the solution, what are you going to do? The solution was, we're doing a rewrite. Every character in the film is a smoker.
I was just going to say that. Just put like cigarette in here.
So before every line of dialogue, what are you going to do, right? You're in production. Before every line of dialogue, they would take a cigarette out of their mouths and say the line of dialogue. And then that became an ironic aspect of the narrative.
Right.
That they're at a health farm, but they're really secretly smoking. Like when they get outside, they're smoking cigarettes.
Yeah, that
adds a humor aspect to it. But
exactly.
Also it's great.
But it's magical how that comes. Yeah, how that comes to be.
There's a story
No,
like
we
that
had
from
to have
Scarface,
this.
too.
Exactly.
Anyway.
Fantastic, man. So are you going to be around the whole festival all weekend?
Yeah, I'm here till late Sunday night, so a couple more days. I did 2 panels today, doing the pitch thing tomorrow, and just meeting people and trying not to open my laptop. I have a lot of different occupations, and they're keeping me busy.
Just try to keep it focused on this one thing.
Just
today.
be
It is right
at the
here,
festival.
And,
This is technically your vacation. Kind of.
Yeah. But this is a good point. My average working day is probably 12 hours, and I work 7 days a week. And honestly, that's the only way, right? You're going to have to work long hours if you want to achieve stuff.
Yeah.
And it just is the case. But I made one change years ago. I was working, just working and sleeping. And I just started to get unhinged because it's so necessary for us as a species to have social contact. So I made a decision that any time a friend said, do you want to get a coffee? I would treat that as if it were a business meeting in terms of prioritizing and
Okay.
Yeah.
So now I have a social life. And I can date and stuff. So it's necessary for you to be realistic about your limits.
Right.
But if you just take breaks and you can keep plowing through.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
You can still come back to that rhythm.
right. So I'm known in the film industry probably best because I write the official book on Adobe Premiere Pro. So I write the book on Premiere Pro, the book on Adobe Audition.
Okay.
Thousands of tutorials on
Good, I got some
post-production.
questions for you.
Yeah, I'm your
After
music.
we-
Yeah.
I mean, no, I know nothing about it.
I have never seen this program.
You spell it like
If you want to
NAP.
grab my copy,
So
I'm gonna bring my laptop tomorrow.
So we update the book every year, and then I'm about to publish a teaching book I wrote, and then a philosophy book I wrote, and I'm finishing post on my first feature film, leading up to the second feature film, which is an XR project. It's very exciting. We're hosting the Camp Pajama Party, which is a big thing. If anybody, will this go out before the 15th of May?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. This yes.
So the PJ.party, www.thepj.party. It's a free lottery. If you're going to the Cannes Film Festival, this is the party that Vogue magazine said was the best party in Cannes. It's completely free. First name, last name, email address, you're in the lottery. I encourage everybody to see if they can come along. We used to host this party with the rule being, it's a big charitable thing, very family friendly. The rule was ask if you can come and you're on the strict guest list. And the idea was that we were frustrated with the exclusivity, the elitism, the red ropes.
Okay,
so
yeah.
we set out to host the best party in Cannes, but one where we specifically don't care who comes.
Okay.
And the rule is you can only come in if you're wearing pajamas or a onesie.
Okay.
No lingerie, no hot pants, no sexy stuff.
It's not the Playboy
Fashion.
Mansion.
Yeah, no, it's not the Playboy Mansion.
We want flannels and some SpongeBob.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We get people coming dressed as dinosaurs.
Oh, that's
or
awesome.
Pikachu. I think it's onesie for the win. So it's a safe space. It's a really nice environment. We never run out of champagne. We have cocktails. And it's white cloth. And the whole 9 yards, right? We run it like a falls party,
Nice.
but we don't care who comes. But we had too many requests too early, so now it's a lottery. Last year we had 1,500 requests for 150 tickets in the lottery. It's 350 people in event. It's paid for by sponsors, so sponsors get guaranteed tickets. A reach of 8. Everybody. So we get Getty Images doing the photography. And apparently the photographers fight over who gets to do the job. Because they all have to. It's a really lovely, really nice event. Red carpet goes up the hill. We serve champagne to people on the carpet waiting to come in. And everyone gets their photograph with Getty. And we share the link to access their photo, which everyone ends up posting on Instagram and Twitter and so on. And it's them in their pajamas with the full Getty Images watermark and their name.
Nice.
It's fancy,
Yeah.
It's good.
That's very cool.
So we get a reach of maybe 8 million just with that.
Wow.
So we're just doing the final preparations for it.
Fantastic. Well, if you guys ever need a movie podcast to host your event, feel free to reach out.
We'll work better on the elevator pitch for that.
One step at a time.
I'll make Tony wear the
On my
Pikachu.
Adobe book.
Yeah.
And, I did bring a copy to give out, but I met a gentleman yesterday who's running a film school. I said he could have it. So
Nice.
We were
Awesome,
just
man.
too short.
Yeah, right? Too little, too late. Oh. But thank you so much for joining us, man. This actually been one of the best conversations we've had in a long time.
yeah,
And,
absolutely.
got to learn a
100%.
lot.
can I add a couple of thoughts on storytelling and
Yes, please.
By all
why
means.
it's important? Is that okay?
Absolutely. No, go ahead.
Just before we wrap up, I've been a professional storyteller now professionally for 20 or 30 years, right? I've been working on storytelling for 35 years. And I think it's worth sharing that stories are extraordinarily important. And there's a reason why a well-made film resonates with us. And it's critical that your lead character, your main protagonist, is someone that you can empathize with. This is really, really important. And the reason for that is that because of our mirror neurons, if you witness somebody having an experience, here's a great empathy test for you. If you want to know how somebody feels, watch their eyes really carefully while they're speaking, and ask yourself, how am I feeling? You will be feeling what they're feeling because of the mirror neurons, the empathy engine in your brain, if you like. So if you want to make a film that's impactful, that changes people's lives, make sure that you're thinking about their understanding as you travel through the story, and make sure that they can empathize with the protagonist. If they don't care about the protagonist, there'll be no emotional stakes for the audience. They won't care what happens. We see this time and time again in Hollywood movies where, I'm sorry if this is going to sound like a judgment, it is a judgment, that the studio execs really wish they were directors, and they start putting in their direction, but they actually haven't understood how you build a meaningful connection with the audience. Now you look at Robert Downey Jr., Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, phenomenal performance.
Yep.
That moment, I don't want to ruin the plot, watch the film, but there's a
I've
moment
already done
where
that,
it
don't worry.
switches, right? And you're right with him. What did I just witness? Compare that to an action movie where it's like, oh, bad guy dead, bad guy dead, bad guy dead.
Right.
It's nothing. So make sure that your audience can follow along with you. Now, there's a brilliant philosophical model, but it's more of like a psychoanalytic model called the inner world model. And the way the inner world model works is like this. You're not directly interacting with what you perceive via your eyes and ears and smell and all of that. All of that information travels into different bits of the cerebral cortex, where it's interpreted and fed probably through the thalamus into conscious experience, which means you're never directly interacting with the real world. Never. There's a slight delay. What you're interacting with is a model of the world in your head. And that model of the world, that's what you're perceiving. And that model of the world is constantly being updated. It's being adjusted as you get more and more evidence to back up what you believe is true about the world, or to contradict what you believe is true about
Changes
the world.
with your bias, right?
But what you experience is what you expect to experience until you receive enough counter evidence for your brain to go, oh, okay, then what I thought was true is not true.
Yep.
You must have had the experience at some point in your life of seeing a friend walking towards you in the street, and you see your friend walking towards you, and as the individual gets closer and closer, their face changes shape, and you realize it's a stranger. You must have had this experience at least once in your life. There's a word for that. The word is transmogrification.
Okay, yeah. Well,
It's a fantastic word.
It actually happened to me on Wednesday.
I never managed it in Scrabble, but so what's happening is your brain is getting enough sense data to go, oh, I know what that is, and triggering an experience consciously of your inner world model of your friend. That's part of your inner world.
okay.
Okay, so far so good. So what the audience is interacting with always is their inner world model. They're not interacting with the direct experience of your movie. Now that you are thinking in that way, you can control the development of the inner world model for your audience. So for example, somebody gets out of a car, they're wearing cowboy boots and jeans, the jeans are all scuffed up, they're walking on gravel, step, step, step. You've instantly got an image in your mind of the kind of person. I didn't mention a gender, but you probably gave them a gender in your mind's eye. The camera tracks up. Let's say it looks like male leg, so it's male. Camera tracks up, and there's a pink tutu. And then you get that reinforcement of the dramatic tension, where as the camera gets to waist height, you haven't seen their face yet, but they do a pirouette. And so, dramatic tension is the contradiction or confirmation of the expectation you gave the audience by feeding their inner world model.
Okay.
And the best way to feed the inner world model for you, are you with me so far?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The best way to feed the inner world model is to use a piece of advice I read years ago, can't take credit for it at all. When you're communicating with somebody, make two assumptions about them. The first assumption is that they're absolute super genius, Mensa member, crazy IQ person. So you're not going to dumb things down for them. You're not going to talk down to them. You're going to be really clear and direct, and you're going to give them the real information. But the second assumption you make is that they are 100% ignorant about the thing you're discussing. So they're super intelligent, and they know nothing about this one subject. So now you won't skip on information, you won't use presumptuous messages like TLAs. What's a TLA? Exactly. A TLA is a 3-letter acronym. Don't use 3-letter acronyms, right? Use the full name, because you're not going to presume they know what that specialist language means.
Okay.
You're giving them the information they need, and you don't forget to give them information they need. So when you're building a plot, when you're building a narrative, when you're building up a project, you know that you're giving the audience all the information they need to construct the inner world model that you want them to construct. They can't avoid constructing. This is the power of language. If I say the word orange, you all have to think of oranges. There's nothing you can do about it. So you're building this inner world model for your audience, and now you can contradict or confirm the expectation you gave them.
This is a science of inception. this is what's
Yeah,
happening.
kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah, a little bit like that. So but it's embedded there. So, but the idea of using the inner world model when you're thinking about your audience is so helpful because it means that you can be conscious of whether you're giving them the information they need or if you're forgetting something important.
Okay.
Or if
Okay.
you're foreshadowing, right? So you look at, what was the movie, Usual Suspects?
Yeah.
With Kaiser Soze?
Yep.
Right?
Kaiser Soze,
Now,
yeah.
I think they cheated. Because when they did the flashback, the person that they showed had a really big muscly physique, if I
Yeah.
recall. And I felt that was cheating. Now, it could just be posture, but the way they presented Kevin Spacey seemed like he didn't have that physique.
So what I think they were doing with that, to that point, with that flashback, kind of going to what you were just saying, giving your example about putting that image in your head, that presumption.
Yeah.
When they were doing the flashback, how that person would perceive Kaiser Soze.
No, but they didn't. Good point, but they didn't give you the perception shift where we're seeing through the eyes of a person who's a character
Okay.
in the film. They presented it as the omniscient eye.
Okay.
And you can never lie to the omniscient eye. You just can't do it. If you lie to the omniscient eye, you betray the audience. The audience is the omniscient eye, right? In the theory of the gaze and art history, right? You must only show what is true to the omniscient eye. But if you first say, I was daydreaming yesterday, and here's what I daydreamed about. Fine, you're showing the character's subjectivity. But the omniscient eye is never subjective. The omniscient eye is always subjective truth within the narrative.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm just being pedantic.
No.
The point is, you concede thoughts that you know will be misinterpreted. So anyway, there's a few thoughts on storytelling.
Yeah, no, that's
it's,
great.
it's very important.
I was
Storytelling
leaning
is-
in. I was fully engrossed in what you were talking about.
His brain might be
Storytelling.
hurting a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was-
There were a couple times I heard circus music, but I got there in the end.
You got to. I think it's important to remember storytelling is so important to our species. It's part of our DNA.
Yeah.
The ethnologist, is that the word? Ethnologist? Ethnology? Yeah. They say that we developed the written word late relative to the complexity of our civilization.
I think you think of anthropologists.
Anthropologists, sorry, not ethnologists, that's ethnicity. Anthropologists. The anthropologists say we developed the written word late relative to the complexity of our civilization because we didn't need it. We used stories to codify information and pass it from generation to generation. And storytelling is so fundamental to our nature
Right.
that we still use it to remember things.
That's why we had more cave paintings than there was written languages that are from. Yeah.
Yeah, because the cave paintings told stories.
Exact-
So
yeah.
There it is. All right, I'm done.
Aw, already?
No, that was great. I mean, like I said, we really enjoyed this.
Yeah,
And-
absolutely.
and to the other point, I know you said earlier it was like a long answer. We don't like short answers
Yeah.
because
Yes.
then it makes it so much harder to, from an interviewer perspective. Tell me about this, and they're like, "Oh, it was cool." Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So
and moving on.
But again, no, you gave a lot of great information, and thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
And for some of us, maybe we can revamp some of this information again too when we rewatch it as well. No, but I think it's great, and I love the perspective of it, and, given the in-depth thought process behind it. So that's one of the other things we love about Sunscreen is getting perspectives from every aspect of filmmaking,
Yeah.
Yes.
but getting that deep dive into how the mind perceives things and how the mind works and how
Yeah.
you tell stories. So thank you.
That's
very
why we
much.
make movies, right?
Absolutely.
And for what it's worth, I'm super easy to find. MaximJago.com. Maxim Jago everything. Like super
absolutely.
easy. And I'm always happy to hear from people who have ideas and reasons why I'm wrong about things. Send them my way.
Awesome.
You're never wrong, you're just mistaken.
Interesting. Yes.
Yeah.
I like that.
Hey,
Yes.
you like the weatherman.
Exactly,
Officially
yeah. We're
wrong.
not, really wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for the viewers out there. Again, continuation day 2 of Sunscreen. Got a lot more day to go. Got a lot more weekend to go. So stick around with us. We'll be back for more interviews. All right, guys, welcome back. Sunscreen continuation day 2. We're getting closer to the end of the day, but we've had a lot of great interviews so far and a lot more to come. But to our special guest, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hello, I am Krista Grotte Saxon, executive producer and veteran actress of about 50 years by now, 24 years, and creator of Filmmaker Berserk, an online course for filmmakers.
Nice. So you're here at Sunscreen. Can you give us a little insight as to what your part of Sunscreen is here this year?
Yeah, so I'm a sponsor, and it's been a super amazing experience. I come every year, and I've done your show
Yes, you
Yeah.
have.
several times,
Yep.
and that's been a huge part of my sunscreen experience as well. So it's been super fun and exciting. And this year I thought, you know what? Why don't I sponsor? Because I get to meet so many great people here and see people I've known for years. So
Yep.
it's really nice, like a big film family
Yep.
here. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So you're doing a panel tomorrow, correct?
Yes.
So can you give us a little rundown on what that's about?
Yeah, so I'm doing a workshop tomorrow morning, and I'm going to put a disclaimer on it that this is not for sissies. This is all about the movie industry and the business, because sometimes filmmakers, I feel like since I've come out with Filmmaker Berserk, and it speaks about the true side of distribution and the predatory business model that's usually used against independent filmmakers, because there's obviously a big gap between independent film, the gatekeepers, and then distribution and streaming platforms, and making revenue off of your movies. So I want to give it to everybody straight about how the distribution model works and how it's designed to actually charge you and not earn you revenue based on the streaming platforms. So I kind of want to talk about how you can use it to your benefit, distribution, but not count on a big check from the distributor. You know what I mean? So that's basically what I'll be discussing tomorrow, and I'm excited about it. I got a lot of people coming up like, I really want to hear what you have to say. Yeah.
Well, I remember one of our first interviews that we got to do with you was, you were very passionate on a distribution issue that you had with one of your films that was going out. So I can still feel the passion and, and the angst a little bit behind that. So.
And I get to use Berserk as my excuse to be crazy. So that's why I called it Filmmaker Berserk. And I am passionate about it because in 24 years of film, I've noticed a pattern, and it's like, we'll get distribution, but what have you guys done? What have you received from that? What type of revenue have you earned from that? And I don't see a lot of investors coming back. So we want to get investors to come back. We want to flip our movies and make money off our movies and commercialize them to the best of our abilities so that you can, use it as a business and make money off of it. I did another podcast too, and I was talking about that, how I feel like a lot of independent filmmakers feel trapped in that title of starving artist. And everybody is so much more valuable than that. Look at the creative content that's out there and how hard everybody works with their sweat equity, time, their own money, and everything. And we don't need to accept that starving artist crap or be made to feel guilty about earning a living doing what you love. It's okay. And you can make it happen. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so when you said a lot of people, asking about, coming into the panels, that's what we actually just had an interview earlier with the education director who sets up all the panels and stuff, and he said that's one of the things that's really good about that, and we've agreed all the years we've done this now here at Sunscreen, is that the panels are always very interesting, very informative, but they come with a level of passion behind the people talking about what they do, so it really gets the engagement from the people. So I think how he put it, it's not like just a blanket vague thing like, okay, you do this, here's how you do it, we're done.
He said, like, we're at a set timeline. Half the time I'm stepping in to say, come on, we got to move on a little bit just to make sure that we have enough time for everything.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. I'm trying to make sure I get everything in there, because I want a packet full of content, that people need to hear and want to hear. I want people to walk out saying, oh my goodness, I never thought about that. I never really thought about that. And so, like, an example is, all the years I've been doing movies, because in my portal I put it for the technical and legal requirements for delivery, and reverse engineering that so that we start before even rolling camera. And then knowing who your audience is, taking a personal inventory of your audience and where do they hang out, where do they watch their movies, Netflix, YouTube, Hulu, Vudu, whatever, and then gearing, it toward your distribution plan toward that audience, right? So, but then you got to look at Netflix has different deliverable requirements than say Hulu or Vudu does. So Netflix has 5.1 sound, and you have to have 4K, and then the other ones will be HD. So somebody will shoot an HD planning on, oh, I'm going to get a deal through Netflix, or I'm going to pre-sell this, and then they don't meet all the spec requirements. Then they got to go back, or they lose a movie altogether. And that's a very common thing that happens, not knowing. You need your chain of title. You need all these things, or you cannot stream a movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is it pretty common that like that happen more often than not, where they don't give you those requirements up front?
Never.
Wow.
I don't know, and I tried to search it. So this is what I did with my movie Nation's Fire. You know, I got a team of people together, and my passion really comes from, like, I can take the beating because I'm a creator. So it's like almost like we pride ourselves on the struggle. I can live in the back alley and handle it as long as I can create. I don't care. But I had investors put up money because they believed in me. And these were my partnering people in my aviation world who was like, we trust you, Krista. That broke my damn heart, because when the distributor screwed us over and our Oscar-winning producing team, and it was just about getting as much money off our production as they could and not delivering for us, I saw the red flags during the shoot. And I started to see little things, and I was like, wait a minute, these guys are claiming my movie as theirs, as if they funded it, as if they own it, and put out the first media press about them with Deadline Hollywood and all this. And I said, okay, so how about I just shadow them, and I'm going to get every single piece of paperwork. I had 8 bins full of papers by the end of our movie, because it was a union film as well, and we used celebrity cast, Bruce Stern, you know, Chuck Liddell.
Oh, I love that guy.
Yeah, and he was awesome. And as me being the owner and sole owner of the movie and being responsible, you know, we've hired over 1,000 people on this production. You want to make everybody proud. And you can't do that if these gatekeepers are stopping you and just using it to just rob you blind on your budget. And so all the movies made, or money's made off the budget. Well, that's not fair to us investors, executive producers, who provide the jobs. But yet SAG, you know, looks out for the actors and the writer. You know, you got your unions, but nobody looks out for the investors. So with my program, it's basically about showing them that this is what you need. And yes, to answer your question, because I'm talking a lot.
No, that's fine. If you like that.
Thank you. So many people do not know anything about technical delivery or legal. Legal is like, there's so much documentation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and when I talked to people, I was going to help produce a film, and they didn't have. I said, you guys, we have to follow this guideline. I'm going to give you this information so that you know, or whatever, but they didn't listen. And then they came back later, their tail between their legs, and said,
we
you were right.
we didn't.
And then they couldn't get the deal. So, you know, you have to, and distributors use that to their advantage, because what you don't know makes them money.
Yep.
So if I don't meet all the technical requirements for the streaming platforms, they're going to say, look, we need you to go in and fix this. We have a technical team here. Here's our fees, our rate card, and then they charge you those fees to do those fixes. Well, the last thing you want to do is pay your distributor, right? So there's just or they just won't take it at all and say, well, we could get sued if we take this because you guys didn't get your chain of title together.
Yep.
You don't have any of the documentation that we need. So, and that's super common.
And I think also kind of going back to like the term you used earlier, like, you know, when it comes to a person's creative, like you have 2 types of people. Now, sometimes you get lucky and you get a person like yourself who's on both ends. You know, you got your business savvy, you got your creative savvy. Most creative people are just like, I just want to make this and let's go. They don't have that information, like you said, or that knowledge of it, or if, you know, you hand them a contract, they wouldn't know what they're looking at. They're like, okay, here we go.
Right.
You know, I just made my work of art. You say you're going to make me money. Okay, great, let's go. But there's so many people out there that don't have that, because they don't want to have to focus on the business.
No.
You know, they want to focus on, I want to create stuff. I want to be, you know, show my vision. I want to celebrate it. I want to share it with other people. And that's about as far as they thought.
Right.
You know, they may be technical savvy with equipment, like, hey, we can shoot our own stuff, edit, whatever. But yeah, the business end of it has always been the part where, in my opinion on this, where a lot of people really don't know what they're doing, or don't have are not given the resources. So I don't want to say they're ignorant. I'm just saying that they're not given the resources or the guidance to where to find those resources to help them out.
No, exactly. And especially, I'm going to say, if you are approaching an investor and you want money, you better know the business.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have even come to me with a pitch, and they'll say, hey, can I got a movie for you. We're looking for $1 million for this. I'm like, all right, what have you done before? What? Oh, well, I've just done a couple $5,000 budget movie. This has literally happened. And I'm like, do you understand there's a big difference between $1 million budget that you're going to be responsible for versus a $5,000, $10,000 budget film? And additionally, how are you going to make the money back? What is your plan? And they have no answer.
Yeah.
And we even did that in the beginning, and that's how I learned. I look back now and I laugh at it. I'm like, we were in investor meetings. We traveled the country looking for investors for Nations Fire, and we sat in front of people, and they're like, yo, how am I going to make my money back? And they're sitting, and we looked at each other, and we're like, good question. I don't know. And so I'm like, you guys, we have to have an answer for this. You know, they're like, there's Redbox, there's streaming. You guys, we got to do better than this.
Yeah.
We really got to figure this out. And that's when we brought in Oscar-winning producer on. I thought, he's got the experience. He don't get bigger than this. He knows what he's doing, and gave us a guarantee for distribution, and then didn't deliver because the budget was just too high. It's unrealistic for independent film to be $1 million budget. And it is unrealistic. So, because distributors don't pay unless it's a pre-sale and you already have a relationship with a studio. So, and that's the benefit I have, is that I've worked everything from student films to Lionsgate and Universal Films. So there's that whole spectrum of experience on both ends. Yeah.
And another thing too, like, if you give that blanket statement, like, even on a podcast, and like, well, we're going to make money doing this. Well, we'll get on iHeartRadio, their paid program. Great answer. How are you going to get on that? How are you going to get in there?
How are you going to get the
a little bit
listens?
deeper.
Yeah.
So, we'll get on Netflix. Okay, that sounds great. People are on Netflix. They make money being on Netflix.
Yeah.
How do we get on Netflix? So that's the thing.
It's not easy, and there's, you have to, there's a whole process in that as well. You have to go out there and you have to meet the right people. So I'd say that whatever you put into the creative side, you got to put double, triple into the business side of it. So start even before, if you're a screenwriter or a director, I would get out there to the film markets, to the American film market, and start meeting with people, networking, and, so that you meet sales agents, acquisitions, executives, distributors. They're all out there. And it's not to say that they're all good people or anything, because they're probably not. So you got to go into it looking at it as, you know what, I'm going to use this to my relationship with them to my benefit with my movie, because they're probably going to take me and not pay me. So you got to make it work for you by creating other revenue streams around your movie, and use it as a commercial with that distributor, and market it. You got to do everything yourself on top of that.
Absolutely, and that's another thing where film festivals come into play and stuff like that, because for the most part, like a lot of film fans, I'm not talking about like Cannes or anything like that, but this is a great film festival here, and they get a lot of people even from all over the world that come here. But to submit your film, it doesn't really cost a lot. Like, there's not a big submission fee. So even as a student filmmaker, you can mow a couple lawns and you can get your film in there. But you have the potential to meet people or go to these workshops and this. They had one a couple years ago. I don't know if they do it every year, but I know they had specifically, and it was about business plans. Plan your business and plan your business plan, I think is what it was called. And they went through it specifically, like, they gave them some templates. Obviously, it's only like an hour block that they had, so they can't give you the full Harvard University education on it,
Right.
But they walked out and they said, okay, these are the main focus points of your business plan. You need to have this, and this. So, like you were saying, you have the answers to these questions. I think one of the points of it was, like, if you're ever unsure, write out what you would want to know. So if I asked you a question about, hey, Tony, I got this movie, and I had a theater. Tony's run the theaters. Okay, think about what I would ask you. Write that down, and then see if you can come up with the answer. If you can't, you need to do more research. So that was like, it was a little more thought-provoking.
Yeah.
So not really a full-on, this is exactly how you do it. They did have other connections where they said you could take these courses, or you can, talk to us, via online. But they did offer something like that as well. So.
That's good.
And that's what all the workshops are. So like what you're going to be doing in your panel, in your workshop, is very similar to what a lot of the people do for their specific areas. We just spoke to the other guy a little bit ago.
Yeah, Maxim.
Mia Maxim. And I'll tell you
Trying
what,
to
that guy was like, he delved into the depths of thought and perception.
Yeah.
Like about when you're making a movie, think about all the stuff. So he was going beyond before you even write your script.
It started with like philosophy, then it went into science, and then back to philosophy. I'm
And
like,
then metaphysics.
whoa.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
this is
deep.
like, exactly. I'm like, you're making me feel my feels.
So
That's funny.
that's like just a side note of it, but that just kind of goes to show you, like, that's what I'm talking about, like the depth that all these panelists go into, and so that's why we love this place.
I agree, and he's right on about that because I talked about that too. When I sat in for meetings, like through the studios and everything, a lot of the scripts, they make sure that they gear the content within the script, whether it's the characters or one-liners, whatever, so that you can focus on IP, because you want to make sure that you're able to sell merch and stuff like that based off of the movie. If you look at all the Marvel movies and all that, these are where the money is. And the studios actually, no matter what they claim, they say they make, hundreds of millions of dollars on these movies. It's not exactly true. It's a big marketing gimmick, and they actually, make majority of their revenue is based off of the merch, the theme parks and the merchandise and, the IP, the intellectual property, like all of that. So that's where the licensing, that's where the money is on these movies. And so with filmmakers here, I think the film fests are so powerful for independent filmmakers, but they should treat that as a business as well. So you go into it with your plan, not just saying, hey, we're going to watch our movie, it's screening here. And that's how I've always looked at it. Oh, my movie's going to screen at the film fest and whatever. Build a whole business plan out of it. Get out there, network, market, do what you can to be a partner with that film fest when you're like last night we went to that amazing party. That movie Four Down, I mean, amazing. And like stuff like that, that's the brilliance behind doing the business and the movie creative side of things. Yeah, so.
Well, it's a fun time. I mean, we like I said, this is our fourth year now doing this.
Yeah.
Actually, it's since we started the show. We got connected automatically with this.
Yeah.
So we've met a lot of great people, and the people that run this event. What's your experience been so far?
Exactly the same, and it's so funny because, so I love it here, and all of us, I think we love to just be in the environment of movie people, movie makers, and we have so much in common that we can talk about. And I have met so many great people that have come up and we're looking out for me, and saying, hey, I got somebody you got to meet. And I'm like, okay, I need you to meet this person. And it's really cool because that is where you can build upon these relationships and exchange ideas and work together on different things. I'm sure through doing your podcast as well. But and growth, it takes time. So like when you want to go to one of these, it's a great way to market your movie, your production company, and future projects and what you're doing, and it's so important. And I think a lot of us want that instant gratification when we make a movie, but each one should be built as its own business, as its own entity, and you build upon that, and you got to work your butt off from the beginning to post-release of the film. So, and it's just about sticking to it. And I think a lot of people, I've had a few people come up to me and it's like, hey, do you remember working on this one movie? And I'm like, oh my goodness, that was like 20 years ago. And I said, I remembered exactly what I said on set and had everybody roll. It's I can't even say it here because we had a big blood splatter on the blinds in the scene, and I had to shoot somebody, and it was crazy. And we were talking about it, and I was like, oh my gosh. So we went into all these stories of all these people we knew and how they're doing now. It's like really cool, that type of experience, and we're still here. 20 years later.
It's about when I met you the very first time. It was at the USF Film Festival.
Yeah.
Laura?
Yeah,
I don't want to say it
Yes,
wrong. Please
that's
forgive me if
right.
I say it wrong.
That's right.
Yeah, and then it was funny because, like, when you talk about like the close knit of the community, so we did, what was it, last year? Brick Danforth.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So through a friend of a friend, we got connected on Facebook, and I saw that he was doing film, and I said, hey, you're filming, can we get you on our podcast? So we did a virtuals through Zoom.
Yeah.
After a while of talking, somehow your name came up, and I mentioned you. I was like, oh, I met her once. I was like at USF. I was like, she was one of our first guests. I was like, but I met her at the USF. He's like, yeah, I was there. And I'm like, oh, I may have shaken your hand back there. And he's like, yeah, you might have. And I'm like, oh, this is so cool. Going back to, and that was when I was doing movies,
crazy.
And I'm like, this is insane. And actually, you met a couple guys that became our friends from here at Tampa Bay Screams.
Yes.
No, I was not stalking you. It came up on my
No,
Facebook
that's
feed.
very cool.
It was Michael Robert Kessler
Yes.
and his wife.
Yes.
You guys were at OCC. Well, he posted, because we're friends on Facebook too, and he posted the photo of all you guys together.
Yeah, that was so
and it showed
fun.
up, and I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Like,
I know
all that.
everybody in there.
Yeah, that was so fun.
So those guys are really cool.
Gotta give a little shout out to Bad Monkey Pictures.
Yes, Bad
Pictures,
Monkey.
but yeah, so it was really funny because we've now all become friends. We talk offline. We've met up a couple times, but I
And
think
his stuff is phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I will just say, it was great. So.
I've been lucky enough to where, like, because Doug, who's the programming director here, we're all good friends with together, and every once in a while Michael will send me a couple pre-screeners and he's like, let me know what you think about this, dude. I'm like, wow, that was interesting, man. Or it's really cool. It's dark.
Unique.
Yeah. Uniquely Dark is a very.
I will say,
It's a Bad Monkey picture.
oh
Yeah.
I will say this: I love the stuff. You do have to be a certain
Type of person.
Yes.
not type of person.
No.
You have to like.
Type of
You have to, yeah. You have to have a certain lens for it.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
But yeah, so it's really kind of cool and crazy how everybody reties together, and then it's like.
It is.
We were downstairs earlier, and someone was telling Doug that they knew me, and I'm like, Doug, this is your event.
It was your friend Rob, his
oh,
wife.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
No, his wife.
His wife. Well, yeah, that's what I said.
But no, it's a great time. We love it. We get to meet so many people, and what we love about we love doing interviews in our regular year.
Yeah.
Well, we love doing it here. Number one, you get more involved with things.
Definitely.
It's obviously we can do a bigger setup, but
We have lighting.
yeah, we're
Nice
pretty-
lighting, yeah.
We're all grown up now.
Yeah.
But it's just a matter of every type of personality is a little bit different, and every interview is just slightly different.
Yeah.
And all of them are phenomenal,
Yeah.
but one you get I want to talk about just the creative. One person wants to talk about the philosophical.
Yeah.
You get all these perspectives in all these interviews, and it all melts together well. So like my enjoyment is after we're done with the festival, even though I hate it being over, but after Sunday, spending the time editing everything together, I get to relive it. That's really more of my enjoyment of it. It's like getting to re-listen to everything and watch everything and see how different everything was, but how we're all the same because we all have the same focus and drive, and we all just want to make something.
It's true. And no matter what happens in the business, we always come back.
Yep.
You're not taking us down. We're still going to come back and create and do, and now I'm doing bigger and better things. I don't, Andy Lolino is the owner of Tampa Bay Screams, and he'll actually be here tomorrow. Good friend, great guy, and we're doing a new business venture together as well in relation to film. So I'm not going to get too much into it, but it's it's to help indie filmmakers get their movies out there to the world. So we're not going to be distributors per se, but we're doing our thing. So we're working on that now, and bigger and better things. So I'm really excited about that. So it's kind of Filmmaker Reserve branching off. So and doing more. And it's funny you mentioned that about people, because one of the girls here came up to me and she goes, Necro Nancy. And that was one of Rick Danforth's movies. We did that like 20-something years ago. And I was like, get out of here. She recognized me from that. And she goes, yeah, I have the DVD. I said, we sat on his couch and there was like this stuffed tiger behind me. I was like, do you want that in the shot? He's like, oh no, we gotta move that.
We'll be bringing in a live tiger next week.
Yeah, I would be surprised. It was fun.
No, that's awesome though. But we probably have I think the students coming.
Yeah,
up
they're
in
coming up in a
minutes. I don't
few
want to cut
minutes.
anything short. And if you're here the rest of the weekend, feel free to come back up.
Okay.
And come and even just BS with us about how the rest of the festival's going. We'd love to hear how the panel went.
Yep.
So
Can't wait.
If you get a little bit of time and you can come back and join us, let us know how that went too.
I will.
Awesome. But for you guys out there, continuation of Sunscreen, day number 2, almost over. So sad the days go by so quickly.
I know.
But we had the fabulous Krista Saxon. And we'll be back a little bit later, and then we'll be here the rest of the weekend. But until then, for Movie Talks and Chill, we are your hosts once again. I'm Tony Serrano.
I'm Gavin Butts.
I'm Patrick Wall.
And I'm Krista Saxon. Thank
All right,
you.
guys, take care.